Eye on Culture is sponsored by the Methodius Family Foundation.
Eye on Culture. Mikhailo Hrushevsky once said that the Ukrainian political movement, in all of its aspects, had its genesis in the Cyril and Methodius Brotherhood. Of course, he was referring to the modern Ukrainian political movement, that is, from the beginning of the 19th century. At that time, because of political circumstances, the people of Ukraine were forced to abandon their traditional name Rus, or Ruthenians, and assumed the ethno-name Ukrainians. Under this name, the Ukrainian elite was attempting to determine the place of its nation within the global political hierarchy, not as part of Poland or Russia, but as the true inheritor of the unique cultural and political traditions of the Ukrainian lands. And within this context, the spirit and ideas of the members of the Cyril and Methodius Brotherhood provided the underpinnings not only for the Ukrainian political movement, but also for the very concept of Ukrainianhood as such, the concept of modern Ukrainian identity. So then, what do we know about the Cyril and Methodius Brotherhood? This enigmatic group of young people which was active in KU way back in the 1840s, and which has had such a great impact on how Ukrainians as a nation think of themselves today. What were the ideas and values of the Brotherhood's members, or their understanding of the past and vision for the future? When most Ukrainians think of the Cyril and Methodius Brotherhood, perhaps their first association is with its influence on the fate of Ukraine's national poet Taras Shevchenko. After all, the arrest of Brotherhood members in 1847 led to Shevchenko's imprisonment and exile to the steppes of Central Asia, where he was prohibited from writing or painting. Actually, Shevchenko's participation in the Brotherhood was marginal. The severity of his punishment was rather payback on the part of Tsar Nicholas I for Shevchenko's poem The Dream, in which the poet bitingly mocked the Tsar and his wife. And at the same time, it was the Tsar's attempt to get rid of a brilliant and creative individual who had already by that time become a symbol of Ukraine's new spirit of struggle for independence and freedom. Besides Shevchenko, there were other individuals in the Cyril and Methodius Brotherhood, without whose activity the history of the Ukrainian nation would likely not have unfolded in some of the positive ways that it did. Panteleimon Kulish was the second most important cultural figure after Shevchenko in the Ukrainian national revival of the 19th century. He was one of the finest masters of the Ukrainian language and had a tremendous influence on the transformation of the Ukrainian peasant vernacular into a well-developed national language on a par with other European languages. The third leading Ukrainian cultural figure of the early 19th century was Mykola Kostomarov, the founder of populist historiography not only in Ukraine but also in Russia. There were also some lesser-known figures in the Brotherhood. These were talented and important individuals who, because of their arrest, exile, or persecution, were never able to achieve the heights of their potential. Highly educated and principled Mykola Rawlyk was one of the Brotherhood's main drivers of ideology. After his arrest, he refused to compromise his ideals or to renounce his beliefs in order to be pardoned. He was banished from Ukraine and never allowed to return. Also, Vasil Bilozersky, with his profound spirituality, was for the other Brotherhood members the living embodiment of Christian virtue, and it was precisely on the basis of such Christian values that the brothers hoped to someday form a union of free nations. And there were many other individuals who also figured prominently in the Brotherhood. The Brotherhood's ideological Bible was the books of Genesis of the Ukrainian people. It was written in a highly romantic style by Mykola Kostomarov, on the basis of his discussions with Mykola Rawlyk and other Brotherhood members. In the books of Genesis, we find both the strength and weakness of the Brotherhood's ideology. That is, the strength of its noble idealistic vision, and the weakness and nebulousness of its ideas regarding practical applications of its ideology. However, a paradoxical play of strength and weakness was also inherent in the very concept of Ukraine that the Brotherhood propagated. Inspired by Christian idealism, Kostomarov and other Brotherhood members espoused a paradoxical view. They believed that the source of the Ukrainian nation's power was that which outwardly seemed to be its greatest weakness, that is, the country's lack of a powerful autochthonous aristocracy. They held that Ukraine must distance itself from the very idea of a nobility, the social class that had a leadership position in other countries, in order to create a classless society, a nationwide brotherhood of equal and free people. Interestingly, the brothers themselves, with the sole exception of Taras Shevchenko, came from noble or middle-class families. The fundamental principle, then, underlying the Brotherhood's idea of Ukraine's future social order was the resurrection of the egalitarian paradigm of the Cossack Zaporozhian Sich. Thus, Ukrainians were supposed to bring into the European context of the time, that is, to a Europe of centralized empires, a new social order, in which there will be neither Tsar nor Tsarevich, neither Tsarivna nor prince, neither count nor baron, neither serf nor slave. According to the ideology of the Cyril and Methodius Brotherhood, Ukrainians were supposed to follow Christ's example, who, through seemingly weak humility and self-sacrifice, was able to conquer great empires, and they were to exert a positive influence on Europe, first and foremost on the Slavic nations, through their inherent devotion to the principles of freedom and tolerance and their inborn piety. Kyiv was to become the capital of a federation of free Slavic nations. The Brotherhood's The Books of Genesis, written in biblical style, ends with a prophecy, and pointing to the spot on the map where Ukraine will be located, people will say, "Here is the stone that was cast away by the builders, and which became a cornerstone." Following the dismemberment of the Cyril and Methodius Brotherhood by the Tsarist police in 1847, it seemed that the political movement that it initiated would fade away into obscurity, because sensibilities of the time, not unlike our own today, perceived the ideas of the Brotherhood as utopian, that is, as naive, impractical idealism. At the same time, these seemingly unrealistic ideals soon became the cornerstone of a much broader Ukrainian hromada or community movement, which later already profoundly shaped Ukraine's cultural and political future. The hromada movement, which was spearheaded by notable intellectuals such as Volodymyr Antonovich and Mikhailo Drahomanov, no longer referenced the pathos of biblical style, and it espoused the principles of a positivist scientific worldview. Even so, the rationalist Mikhailo Drahomanov was still under the influence of the Brotherhood's idealistic text, the Books of Genesis, when, in 1878, he formulated the first Ukrainian political program based on the ancient traditions of Ukrainian civilization. To date, this program remains unrealized in Ukrainian society, but it is full of great ideas and has the potential to be a useful guide for modern politicians and sociologists, and not only in Ukraine. But we will hear more about the hromada movement another time. On behalf of Dr. Marko Robert Stech, I'm Tania Stech. See you next time on Eye on Culture.
Очима культури спонсороване фундацією родини Ігнатович.
Очима культури.